Hello and welcome to 3Q. In this episode, I'm talking to an ex-BBC Dragon, Julie Meyer of Viva Investment Partners. Hi, Julie, and thanks for coming on the programme.
Hi there, nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Julie, what do you think the pandemic has done to the UK venture capital industry? What problems is it having to deal with while we're in lockdown and just coming out of lockdown?
Well, the interesting thing about what's happening for investors, the venture capital community, but also to entrepreneurs and in fact every constituency in society right now is nobody can take things for granted. Everybody now understands well and truly what a black swan event is and a force majeure, things that you just literally did not imagine. And so what that's done is for everybody in the venture capital industry is kind of capitalizing on where the mega trends are going with the benefit of the capital that they manage to make bets on different versions of the future. And so never before have we had to redesign the world from healthcare to every other aspect of society so comprehensively. And so if you're in the position of managing money with the view to redesigning the future of society and business, you're looking for the best problem solvers. So you are hugging entrepreneurs, you are tracking entrepreneurs, you are trying to find the best entrepreneurs. So I think there's probably a renewed understanding of the role of the entrepreneur and the reality that we need to look for the entrepreneur. We call that following the entrepreneur. That's why we call our investor summit Follow the Entrepreneur. The role of the entrepreneur is going to be incredibly heightened in society, and venture capitalists are going to not just be sitting back in their cozy little Mayfair offices waiting for them to show up. They're going to be out there trying to find them.
And what investment strategies would you recommend for the VC industry going forward?
Look for people that are, committed and have a kind of robust resilience to them, right? It's going to be difficult to build businesses because all sorts of things from access to capital, getting people to pay on time, credit teams, costs of anything, acquisition of customers, you name it, everything is going to be tougher. There'll be some industries which will open up, new ecosystems which will emerge, some doors which will be pushing on an open door, and there'll be whole industries that will migrate to different spaces. So when you're evaluating, I always look for that edge that the entrepreneur has, that that he or she is just not going to be okay unless they do something, a kind of bloody mindedness. And I think that we're going to have to be even more understanding, the family setup behind the entrepreneur, because if you are going to set up as an entrepreneur, if you don't have your family on board with that, if you don't have your financial situation sorted, if you've got some sort of instability in your life and then you're going to set up a business, it's not going to work. You'll collapse. And so I think we need to be more attuned to the the gestalt, the wholeness that is required to actually lead people in a time of change, and there'll be ways that we'll be able to figure that out better by the end of this or the next phase.
And finally, how do you think the UK tech industry can help the economy bounce back?
Well, it's an interesting way to frame it, David, to call it the UK tech industry, because in so many respects, technology is a layer. It's not an industry. It's not a kind of ghetto or another. It's not like, there's healthcare and then there's sports and then there's, and then there's tech. Technology is a layer across all industries. So what I would say is that people that maybe have gone further down, the yards towards understanding how technology is changing society have probably a responsibility to speak up a little bit more, so that it's not incumbent upon just a small group of people or BBC Newsnight to educate everybody, but that we recognize that the sooner we get to the future, the better. There's a very important thinker. She's actually based in the UK, but she happens to be Venezuelan, but she's a professor of innovation. Her name is Carlota Perez, and she writes about the innovation cycles. And what she says is the difference between the 60 and the 80-year cycle, because for 300 years, the same thing happens every 60 to 80 years. we move to the future, we get over a discontinuity. And the difference between it being 60 or 80 years, between society basically netting a couple of billionaires or prosperity ripping through society, is society having the right conversation. And that's why I think what you're doing is quite smart. You're helping society have the right conversation about what's happening with technology. And if that can get wider spread, so it's not just those of us in this technology world, but that, you know, the average person in the economy understands how technology is changing for the better, then we can move to the future more quickly. We can get to a place where prosperity rips through society, as opposed to it just being a kind of cloister few, and we get about 25 new billionaires and that's it, right? Not that there's anything wrong with being a billionaire, but we also want to make sure that we got a couple 10 million people that live better lives as well.
Julie, that was very interesting. Thank you for taking the time to appear on CQ. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, David, so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.